Welcome back to another episode of the JUSTUS podcast. For now, it'll just be me and Tobs 26, aka the dynamic duo of the podcast.
Hello, people.
For today's episodes, we'll be taking a look at Power Rangers Mystic Force, Loki, and Gunsmith Cats. 3 subject matters this time around, but should be good enough for each of us. Hey now, let's begin from left to right as always. So, you may not be much of a common PR fan, but what are your thoughts on Mystic Force, Tobbs?
My thoughts on Mystic Force are very distant and I would say inexistent.
Hmm.
So you better start out with this one.
All right. Mystic Force is the adaptation of Mahou Sentai Magi Ranger. And I have some very small thoughts on Magi Ranger, but this podcast has very little to do with Super Sentai and more so to do with Power Rangers, a franchise I'm more familiar with. So, Mystic Force. After my huge obsession with Ninja Storm, Dino Thunder, and SPD, which were 3 top tier PR seasons overall, if you ask me, one would
Hmm.
wonder
Yeah.
exactly what they would have for Mystic Force, because you went from like this sort of action packed radical ninja season to this epic like massive feel for the Dino season that feels like a proper MMPR that's like a modern MMPR done right, and SPD very high tech, very cop themed, very like sci-fi oriented, and almost could fit in well with your modern day crime dramas. Well, not the ones made nowadays, but more so the ones around 2005, even though they're a little more toyetic or commercial driven. Like, at least the
Yeah.
tone of it wouldn't feel too out of distance. They fit in perfectly fine with like a teenage audience, kind of like Smallville.
Oh, all right.
But Mystic Force, on the other hand, is going to have some things of its own worth delving into. And I'm sure fans are probably upset about Mystic Force for a few reasons we're going to get into, but I think it's another solid season. Maybe not as much as like the first 3 I mentioned from the Disney era, but it's still a well written season overall. I like the chemistry that we have with the characters. I like the magical theme, and it's more than just like typical top hat magic tricks. Like Mystic Force definitely could feel like it would fit in perfectly fine with the Harry Potter universe, if you ask me. Although it's kind of funny that like Harry Potter's under Warner Brothers. Mystic Force at the time was under Disney, then it was under Saban when he got the franchise back, and now it's under Hasbro.
Yeah, what a man has of an explanation, but yeah.
Yeah. So let's go over the story real quick. Now, Mystic Force typically begins with your traditional like heroes coming together to save the day. Like you have 5 young heroes that are come together by thanks to the like the White Ranger of the team, Udana. It was also the mentor. Like she's both the mentor and the ranger, and she even gets to show her like suit at one point, which may not be as like practical for combat as the spandex of the Rangers, but it is nicely done if you ask me. It's kind of like a mix between being angelic and still being like battle ready at the same time.
Yeah,
I mean,
they felt elastic with the like they could actually achieve those movements. I believed it when I was a child.
yeah, you like even if her suit may not be as I don't know what the right word would be, like smooth as the Rangers because their spandex, whereas hers is more like a just different material. But well, before all
Hmm.
that, there was apparently a dimension that was filled with magic. And then darkness came along, and they started to clash with each other, which pretty much like forced all of the evil to be pushed away from the human world. Leanbow would step in and contribute to saving the day, but he ended up making one a sacrifice that would happen, that being that the humans should never know of what happened in the fight. But that being said, the undead army arises once again as they pretty much want to cause havoc after being sealed away for so long, which now requires Udana to bring in the 5 teens to make the Mystic Force team. Initially, they sort of build up to their own powers over time. First, the beginning as Rangers, then they get to have their own Zord capabilities because in this season, they become the Zords. And
Oh, they
yeah,
did.
yeah. And what's great about it is that it's not just your specific animal. Like they're based on specific animals, but it's kind of like it's not like Wild Force. Mystic Force has this sort of aesthetic where it's based on like mythical creatures, somewhat. Like
Yeah.
the Red Ranger has the spirit of like the Phoenix, so he pretty
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and his Zord pretty much resembles the is a humanoid warrior with Phoenix elements. Um, the Green Ranger would turn into the would have like a humanoid form and a Zord form that looks like a Minotaur. A green Yellow Ranger turns into the Garuda, which is kind of like bird-like, very predatory bird, lightning influence as well. Blue Ranger becomes Mermaid, which even though it has mermaid-like capabilities, is still very mechanical. And you have the Sprite for the Pink Ranger, which is the smallest and very fitting for her having a theme similar to like either a butterfly or a fairy. And it works because at some point people are going to get tired of animal themes, and I kind of prefer the way they handled it back then with like the dinosaur animal aesthetics compared to now. Like
Mm-hmm.
Wild Force,
Yeah.
Jungle Fury, and Mystic Force had animal themes in their own ways, but they were kind of specific in terms of for the stylization. Like Wild Force was definitely more adventure, Jungle Fury was more martial arts, and Mystic Force was more so focused on like the mystic magic. And then you compare the unadapted Sentai season, that being freaking Zyuohger, and it looks cheap as hell. Like you have basic ass helmets and animals printed on the spandex like cheap ass shirts. That's pathetic.
Well, I didn't knew that.
But it's kind of funny how that
Good to
turns
know.
out. But yeah, kind of like clashing like aesthetics with characterizations, but it makes sense because like Mystic Force is kind of unique in terms of how it works with its own aesthetics as well as its themes. It's not a rinse and repeat aspect, much like how the characters aren't either. Like Red Ranger, Nick Russell, it's the center of attention. A lot of people complain about that, but here's the thing: he really isn't supposed to be seen as just the only character. Like sure he may be considered a central point, but then again, any story could have a central figure to some capacity. Like obvious example from us, but Zack Snyder's Justice League has Cyborg as the heart of the movie. But does that compromise
Mhm.
every other character? No.
No, not at all.
Nope. Plus I remember the other characters as well. Maybe some more than others, but like Charlie, I me feel like the somewhat more uh cool guy. Maybe felt more serious at times, but he kind of reminds me of the Flash in some ways. Then again, lightning powers and whatnot. But
Did he have good BFX?
it was all right. I mean, he wasn't exactly like the Flash, but he was kind of like the kind of guy that you would expect from someone who would be uh, like take his job seriously and pretty much make do with what he's given.
Yeah.
Like Udana, I'm sorry, Madison, similar names or similar use of letters. Uh, Madison was actually like one I remember less, but that being said, I still kind of like that she and her Um, that she and Vita, her sister, have a good amount of chemistry with each other as well as their other Rangers, which helps him feel more consistent with how they're supposed to work as a team, whether it's just the two of them together or as like just her and Vita. She's also pretty shy and kind of not quite outgoing, but she still manages to pull through nonetheless. She's kind of not exactly, but sort of in the typical role of the blue character being shy. Kind of like MMPR Blue, although he was more of a nerd. Whereas she's more of just a calm individual, or uh, Amy Anderson or Ami Mizuno, even though she's a nerd as well. But hey, she's a girl and blue as well. Now Vita is definitely the more outgoing. She's more of an introvert compared to her sister. But I think we all remember the episode where she was a vampire at one point, and I had no idea how much I liked uh, seeing her accidentally spit out the tomato juice when she was a vampire at one point. It was pretty hilarious, but definitely was it makes sense because you wanted to keep her away from whoever was trying to tame her when she was under that curse. And you also have Xander, Plan Xander. He's kind of like the more of a uh, I don't know what word you would probably use, but he's definitely the more of the funny guy of the team. I mean, you already know that Plan Xander is pretty much set the bar with the kind of guy he is. But I like him. He's got his own charm. He definitely knows how to be confident. And there are moments where he kind of gets to be a little distracted with his missions. He doesn't do it so in an annoying fashion. He knows how to take his job seriously, and like I'm just happy that he manages to do things very well, no problem whatsoever. That's pretty much a core team. We also have Udon, as we mentioned earlier. She, as well as Leanbow, are the parents of Nick, and as I mentioned before, she is the White Mystic Ranger who morphed at one point before losing her powers, but manages to morph again near the end of the season, especially when all eight Rangers are together. Yeah, that's right, eight of them. But I like seeing her character. She's definitely a nice way to deviate from the typical uh veteran ranger type characters or mentors. She's different from someone like Kruger, who's also different from someone like Tommy Oliver from Dino Thunder, who's different from Cam, different from she's even different from someone that people would normally expect her to be similar to, um, Princess Adana, or was it Shayla? Shayla, Prince. I'm thinking about too many similar female roles from PR. It's just Shayla. Yeah, Shayla. Yeah, from Wild Force. I should have. I should
Shayla,
be.
of course. Yeah.
I should be watching more of Wild Force or something. I've been so distracted by Dino Thunder, but I'll get back to Wild Force at some point. But yeah, like she might be similar to Shayla, but no, she's actually quite different in her own right. So she's more um she knows that she's been through she's more like someone that's been given the rougher past, but manages to pull through nonetheless because she's more uh willing to continue her mission, even if it means mentoring the new team. Whereas Princess Shayla seems more obsessed with peace and prosperity. You can even see that too, the way they look as well as their mannerisms. If you were to pay attention to their performances, and you also have the Solaris Knight, aka Daggeron, who's got a really cool looking suit. It's the first time since Zeo Gold where he got ourselves a Gold Ranger suit, and I'm pretty sure I may get them messed up. But hey, like Silver's been used more frequently in Power Rangers, first within space, then with Lightspeed Rescue, he was called a Titanium Ranger. And Wild Force, even though it was called Lunar Wolf, and it was used briefly in SPD for the Nova Ranger. But Solaris Knight was pretty cool. Daggeron, you know, he kind of reminds me of like not exactly, but similar to the character Lando Calrissian in terms of his role.
Huh.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
I mean he's not exactly like one to one like personality wise close to him,
Huh.
but
Okay.
he definitely has somewhat of a uh, charm to him that kind of makes him look more like a knight in shining armor. I mean, even then he's more of like a no nonsense type of guy, and it makes sense too because of his like role as like a as an ancient warrior from the past. But he was all right. I think like if you weren't paying attention to his character, you might have either seen more of his like suit design or his Solaris Knight form, which is like a very pointy knight in type of design, which is like mid. It's like the midpoint to his ranger form, and you also have the his little partner, who is a humanoid cat named uh, Genji, who is this really big, goofy looking grin to him. He doesn't emote. Like he's pretty much like a mascot costume, but less furry, I think. Oh my god.
We hope so. I mean, just show me a picture and I will tell you that I should put that person in jail or not.
You're not gonna and you've seen wait, you've judged furry outfits before, have you?
Yeah, funny.
What if you had a part time job of like putting furries in jail?
I do my checkups. I don't only examine dicks and cocks like crimes. I also. Oh well, yeah. That is borderline. Like it is almost there, but it actually has no fur. It is more mecha.
Yeah,
But
more rubber.
yeah, Robert. I
So
will give
it's
it a pass. I'll give it a pass.
yeah, it's just the face is what like makes it so goofy looking. Like he can't even open his mouth. Like there's some costumes in like there's some like costumes of Power Rangers where like the monsters or someone that's on a similar role like Goldar who either have mouths that can open and close like puppets or
Yeah.
can't emote. Now, as goofy as that looks, I'd rather stick with that than for him to be a CGI character that can emote. Like that would be so wrong. It'd be so creepy.
No, no, please. I'm so grateful that they actually did like these miniature costumes and stuff instead of I don't know a weird CGI like the Garfield movie. Well, I don't know if that's a good example, but yeah,
Oh boy.
those type of weird CGI that appeared in some TV shows, and it was very bad. Like it only worked, for example, if we were talking about Jimmy Neutron, but other shit, it looked creepy as hell.
Yeah. I mean, I think Goldar will look better in CGI because at least his costume looks realistic to some extent.
I mean, it is real. You can touch it. Trust me.
Yeah, but it doesn't look like a mascot costume like Goldar from Mighty Morphin or Mesogog from Dino Thunder. Like they're different from Genji. I'll probably post pictures again, but like Goldar looks more like a monster, like a monkey, a demon monkey wearing golden armor.
Monkey.
Yeah, he definitely is a monkey. Which is funny because like I didn't really know so much, but I remember like he has like these uh like his little like his that face on him looks kind of like bestial and orangutan like. I'm gonna post it up again.
Well, in my opinion, I like them. Well, oh, wow.
Yeah, like that gnarly looking face. Like It may pass in CGI, that so long as it doesn't look cheaper than the costume it's based on.
It looks like Tutankhamun,
Yeah, it kind of
but
does. It kind of does, yeah.
but it's a monkey. Why the wings, like the black feathered wings?
That's because,
Oh,
yeah, and then there's Mesagog. Yep.
that is
Like,
kind of cool.
yeah, he's definitely like the best um, looking character, or like, for practical effects and PR in history because like it looks lifelike. So if they ever do something
Yeah,
like, if they ever want to make a character CGI, he may work, but just don't make him look cheap or make him look cartoony because you want to make him look like this disgusting looking creature that's bipedal.
no, you want to find like the balance between those two extremes. But this one kind of looks like Mark Zuckerberg without his mask.
Oh my god! You know what's funny? Anton Mercer was kind of like the CEO of a company, and he can almost pass off of that.
Why can't I keep mail?
Power Rangers dinosaurs predicted Facebook.
Yeah. Is there a Silicon Valley in the PR universe?
We'll see. I need to revisit a lot of the episodes. But back to Wild Force. The last guy for the Rangers to cover was initially a villain, Leanbow, who began the series as Korag, the Wolf Warrior. And if you've seen Dino Fury and watched Void Knight, you may either think he looks familiar, you may think he's the coolest evil Power Ranger ever. Well, that honor goes to Korag because he was the first evil Purple Ranger type guy. Like much like
Huh.
the Void Knight, Korag is a knight in purple armor. He definitely has like it's different suit design from the other Rangers, and he's also known for having like an evil voice or performance to him. But he also has his own gear as well. Like he has a sword and shield, much like Void Knight does. But unlike Void Knight, his sword is more original, and his shield is serves a purpose. It contributes to the Megazord piece that he takes form of when he gets a hold of Catastros.
Hmm.
Yeah, I may be jumping the gun too soon with the Zords, but in Mystic Force, I already mentioned that the Rangers turn into the Zords. Korag instead grows to the size of a Zord, and he can pilot Catastros in his mechanized form in either a traditional riding or horse riding position, or he becomes a centaur, replacing the head of Catastros and being like the main body for it. But the best part of it is when he becomes a Centaurus Wolf Megazord. Like the back of the legs become the arms, and the back, like the rear of the horse, becomes like the back or the upper body of the Megazord. The shield, like the arms, hug the shield, and it becomes a chest. And what was once the horse, of the head of the horse, becomes the head of the Megazord with a flip out mask. And it gives you like this double bladed weapon, which is so freaking cool. Like Mystic Force knew how to make unique looking Megazords that don't look like they're obvious parts of like made up of obvious parts of a Megazord or different Zords.
Yeah, double bladed.
The other Megazord designs look pretty cool as well. Like the Titan Megazord is like made up of the Ranger team, but it's also got a Dragon mode, which I think looks kind of cool in the show. Maybe not as cool in the toy form, but its method of getting there is ingenious by having the Minotaur become the body, the Garuda become the wings, the Sprite becomes the dragon head, and the Mermaid becomes the tail, while the Phoenix rides it. And then you have the like the like Megazord mode. Mermaid becomes the boots, Minotaur becomes the main body, the Phoenix and the Sprite become the chest, and the Garuda becomes the wings. And like the Megazord helmet design looks kind of like a witch's hat or a wizard hat, but it works. And I also love the sword on it, which looks so pretty. Well, it's pretty, obviously, but it's cool that it's made up of the other Rangers' weapons, like the trident of the mermaid, the sword of the friggin' uh, phoenix, the tail of the mermaid, and the axe of the minotaur. Kind of ingenious how they do that, and it doesn't look too much like it's made up of different weapons.
Hmm.
Uh, the Solaris Knights Zords are different because they turn into their trains. Like it's a main like magical looking train that becomes like a blocky Megazord. But it fits with his theme because uh, he's not like a ranger. He's more of a knight in this case, even though he's still a ranger to me. And it kind of makes sense with the theme of it, as well as it like feeling like it would fit in properly. It doesn't look out of place. And we also get ourselves because Nick is like the center of the team. He gets two additional Megazords. The Centaurus Phoenix Megazord, which is what he uses to replace um, Korag when he takes over Catastros, and the Phoenix Unizord when he takes over, like when he rides a unicorn, which is or Pegasus. I don't remember, but
It could be a Pegasus, yeah.
yeah, and like let me tell you this: that even though it was barely seen, I like the idea of it. But I saw the toy once, and I remember being annoyed that it was just the wrong one because I always wanted to get myself Korag, but they never sold his Megazord in the U.S. back then. I don't know why they didn't do that. Like the UK did, obviously Japan did, but how come like the UK got it but not America or Mexico or Canada for that matter? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, usually it's the other way around.
Yeah, well, apart from Japan because like they would get everything, but it just
Yeah.
seems like I think I remember why. It's because they don't think bad guy toys would sell well for kids. But uh, Hasbro forgot that like not Hasbro. Bandai forgets that Hasbro does Transformers. Their Autobots and Decepticons sell decently together. Like they both have fairly equal numbers. like I mean, okay, Hasbro like putting one faction, giving one faction less attention than the other is one thing. But as far as I know, they both get equal attention in terms of sales by the market.
Hmm.
That's enough about that. Villain wise, uh, I kind of think the villains weren't quite that significant for one another. The ones I remember the most, apart from Korak, was um, like this bat-looking demon who, once again, couldn't really emote because her face was like a permanent expression, like a sneering permanent expression. But I remember her character, and she was not too shabby for her performance. I mean, like the Morlocks were pretty much like what you expect them to be. I mean, you had like the monsters of the week. You had plenty of villains like the barbarian beasts and the 10 terrors. I know them as a group, but not so much individually because they didn't get as much attention as characters like Octomus, not Optimus, or Mordecon, who sort of sounds like Mordecai. Mordecai. But Necroli I remember the most just because of like her design. Like she like I said before, she was like this demonic bat-like creature, and it's even funnier that at one point she was called Nikki Pimvire or Pimvare. Nice try switching up the making an acronym of vampire.
Sorry, what? Nikki Pimp Buyer?
I remember her character because she was kind of like she was this creepy bat-like creature, a vampire. She in her like in her normal form in her monster form, she was very like uh, like soulless. She was intimidating. She was very unsettling to delve into, and no one can I'm pretty sure no one would probably like to be near her because she's very disturbing to think about as a character. She's on par similar to Man Bat, although more TVY7 appropriate. But even then, Power Rangers in 2006 was a different beast compared to 2017 onwards or 2011 onwards.
Hmm.
But you already know that at this point. Whenever I ramble about Power Rangers nowadays, so that's pretty much all I can remember for the characters. Um, Story wise, well, I already mentioned the fact that we get the backstory, but I think what people remember the most, like for me, I remember seeing the episodes where Korag steals the spell that the Rangers use to turn into the Megazord so he can have his own Megazord form. That was great, and it gave the Rangers a reason to take Korag seriously because when when he steals people's powers, that pretty much shows for a fact that you gotta up your game, and that was kind of surprising. Like he was more of a threat than the Thunder Rangers from Ninja Storm were, or Trent from Dino Thunder, because let's put it this way: the Thunder Rangers and Trent were more human than Korak was before we found out about him,
Hmm.
and it definitely makes you think about just um, how we don't really delve into evil Power Rangers anymore. Only Hasbro brought back the idea with Beast Morphers and Dino Fury, but even then, Blaze, Roxy, and Void Knight aren't in the same league as a threat compared to what we got in the past. Like, sure, they lasted longer than Tommy or uh, I think I Ryan from Lightspeed Rescue did last shortly, but they didn't last as long as they didn't last as long as of a threat as someone like the like technically not a ranger at first, but um Zanaku before he became Merrick, or the aforementioned Thunder Rangers and Trent. Because uh Korag was someone you would take seriously, and that episode kind of cemented his status as a big threat to the Power Rangers, more so than the other villains in the series, because he did shit. He got into action. He got his hands dirty. Another episode I liked was um sort of seeing the Rangers realize about the past lives of um Udana and Leanbo when they found out that they're the parents of Nick, and I gave uh, Leanbo a further change of heart because he now realizes what he's done and decides to redeem himself as he becomes a wolf warrior.
Hmm.
Yeah. He doesn't get the cool purple outfit anymore, but it becomes red to match up with his son. And it's not that bad, but I kind of prefer the purple outfit just because it looks more iconic. Uh,
Yeah, I understand.
Hasbro Lightning Collection, please. And we're gonna have to wait for that to happen, don't we? At least we're getting into Wild Force next year, finishing up Beast Morphers, Dino Thunder, SPD. But anyways, I think what people remember the most from Mystic Force was the finale, where everything seemed hopeless until they discovered uh, the uh, I think it was the Mystic Mother or the Magic Mother, but she turns out to be Rita Repulsa, her purified, redeemed form. Because if you don't remember, or if you do remember, do you remember the episode in Space where all the villains from Mighty Morphin up to that season were turned good or were killed by Zordon's energy wave?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, after the events of In Space and before the events of Mystic Force, Rita Repulsa became a guardian of the Morphing Grid, and she was the one who I believe that brought the powers of the Mystic Force team to the Morphing Grid, and like she's way past her dark days of being her dark times of being a villain. She's much wiser. She's more calm, and she was able to help the team out. And I like that sort of connection. Like nowadays, they try to put in a lot of Easter eggs to make it seem so big. Like they put in like, oh, we're gonna put in a crossover. We're gonna have like, all these Easter eggs to past teams. And I think that's to make up for the lackluster writing that modern day Power Rangers has. Whereas back then they would make something either big like Tommy's return in Dino Thunder, or something small like this, but that doesn't like hurt anything because the rest of the season is good. And I'd say the same about Mystic Force because even though it's not like my number one favorite, it is a top tier season overall. And let me tell you this that like for all the people that were like shitting on it back then, I wonder what they have to say about the last decade of content from Power Rangers because there's a shift in quality if you ask me.
Yeah, maybe they regret the first opinion.
Yep. I will say this though that the next season after it, Operation Overdrive, is inferior to the previous four Disney era seasons, but it's still better than what we got for the last decade overall, or for the most part. Like it's equal to Dino Fury and Beast Morphers in some instances, better in others, worse in others, but overall, Mystic Force is a good season. Like I said, not a number one favorite of mine, but I like the ideas, I like the characters, and it's good to revisit at the best of my ability. Even though I kind of hope that we get the episodes in better quality under the YouTube channel of Power Rangers. But like, how else would I recommend this? Would be that if you watch Harry Potter or love these like magic themed shows or mystical shows, Mystic Force would be a good one to delve into. Maybe the writing quality wouldn't be exactly as good as those, but it's still a fun show nonetheless. Or how about let's change it up. Let's use another like a synonym. It's engaging. It's entertaining. I
Hmm.
swear to God, if we use fun, we're gonna look like all the people that say fun, 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 fun in their MCU reviews.
That.
One misses the days when we didn't learn about Collider or Screen Rant. Speaking of MCU, the next topic will be about Loki, which I'm surprised we got ourselves a TV show of him, like instead of a movie. But I guess that makes sense to tie in with his cinematic debut because the first Thor movie turns 10 this year, and even though we have yet to see anything regarding Thor in Love and Thunder until the next few years, which will be kind of funny to delve into in terms of like how it'll be presented, but more on that later. Loki itself is okay as a show. I mean, I didn't have any expectations going into it, but it definitely has an identity of its own, if you ask me.
Yeah, it probably is the best show out of the three, four that there is. There are, but I mean, it's not a big deal. It has its own like chemistry condensed as a show, but it still is not like wow, best Marvel product. Oh my god, fun, fun, fun. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think the thing about Loki is that like it kind of feels like something you'd expect from Phase 2. Writing quality is on par with something like Agents of Shield. Now I've not seen the entirety of Agents of Shield. I know there are people that like it, but it feels kind of vanilla if you ask me. You know, I don't have any high expectations for uh, a lot of MCU shows. I mean, apart from me being like pretty happy with the Falcon and Winter Soldier, apart from the political messages that people try to interpret, like trying to tie in with the real world events, and I clearly mentioned that like fiction and reality have nothing to do with each other. The people that try to correlate like the shitty stuff that happened in early in the year to the fiction, like go outside and touch grass. In this case, I can't really see any like stupid complaints for to say about what people reviewing Loki. Like, I think what they said has been like on par with what I would say, if not like different from how I view it, because I think it's all right, whereas they think it's mind blowing. Put it
I
this way.
think aside from like that huge event from the last episode that we're not going to mention, what is mind blowing about the show?
I think what makes it,
Honestly,
like, honestly, it's just the multiverse thing, because like people talk about like the multiverse stuff, like all the grids, all the lines, all the everything, the connectivity. But truth is, we were expecting that to happen at some point. Like, we all knew they were going to bring in the multiverse stuff at some point, because we all know for a fact that the Marvel Cinematic Universe can't live on without milking their property. So I had no expectations for like them to get to that soon. It's just like it's just kind of a shame that because they hyped up the multiverse stuff, the rest of Loki kind of feels a little forgettable. Like, I know for a fact that Loki has like this sort of bisexual energy to him, which is fine. Like, I think people have their own thoughts on it. Like, at least they didn't market it as the only thing about it. And if you don't like it, then you're a piece of shit. It's just like
I mean,
it's like when I saw it, I was
yeah,
like,
but
oh, so this happened. All right.
sorry, I was just gonna say, have you seen Tom Hiddleston? He doesn't look bisexual. He looks multisexual.
I mean, that makes sense, especially considering the fact that he pretty much um is now with like another version of himself, his female self. So it's like, is it self-sexual? I mean,
Yeah,
it's kind of funny. I don't want to go into that too much, but yeah, it just shows for a fact that like they really focus on the multiverse stuff, and it kind of shows because like when you look at like WandaVision, you get the feeling that they primarily focus on like trying to pay homage to the shows, whereas the other stuff that happens just seems kind of like convoluted and trippy and strange, and
hmm.
it kind of doesn't pay off that well because the end result is just very like head scratching. Falcon and Winter Soldier obviously wasn't about mainly about the multiverse, more so like a more action themed show, and I think it did its job perfectly fine. Definitely feel more on par with like a Phase Two thing than something from Phase Three, but at least it knew what it wanted to do from start to finish. That being the focus on the new Captain America, that being uh, Falcon. I wanted to call him Captain Falcon, but then Nintendo.
Yeah, you'll
And
get copyrighted.
yeah, of course, we don't get in trouble with them. And by the way, like, quick thoughts of Mario movie cast. I expect it to be what it's like, and moving on. But Loki, yeah, definitely get the feeling that they focus more on the multiverse stuff than the series. Like, I know that there's things about Loki to make it distinct, such as like focusing on his own uh, mentality. I know there was like this like sun character that sort of reminds me of like an old cartoon, but that doesn't get as much attention as the multiverse stuff. Like, people cared more about like comic book style Loki, or the female Loki, or alligator Loki, or is it crocodile Loki?
Yeah,
Yeah, pretty much.
and we will see Kevin Feige Loki. When is it coming?
Very soon. I think the last Marvel movie ever pretty much be Kevin Feige thanking every single person that watched his movies, and or I'll be just be him going around the planet Earth and going to everyone's house and like thanking them for uh like watching the MCU, and then he closes off by saying and that's the end of that, and he just rolls credits.
but Kevin has always said, but Feige has always said, but
No, 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 no. That was a good moment.
no, no,
Tom
no, no, no,
McFarlane,
no.
Tom McFarlane doing that to Frosty was just beautiful. And that event turns 5 next year. I remember when film got recorded that. That was so beautiful. Uh, like, like it's not the fact that this guy is like giving attention to the MCU, but it's more so the fact he's trying to go up against a guy that's been involved with comic books for since likely since the beginning of his life.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Todd McFarlane has been so devoted to comic books, like and as for friggin' like fucking Frosty from Collider, like he's pretty much a little bitch boy that just consumes product. He doesn't make the product. You know, there's a difference between like criticism, like people critiquing stuff, and outright like weirdos like Frosty, but like going up against um Todd McFarlane for that, especially when you look at how different their appearances are. I probably look just as bad as like Frosty does, but at least I don't have a balding scalp like his bitch ass. And at least
Yeah,
my
but
voice sounds more
oh,
attractive than his. But you get my point. Like, don't go up against a legend like Tom McFarlane. Like going up against him is like trying to argue with with Alan Moore while he has a knife in your mouth. Like that's what it feels like.
yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
but that aside, like Loki itself, I don't really hate, but I don't think it has much to revisit apart from the multiverse stuff. And considering the fact that like Marvel's What If is now tapping into the multiverse, and we're going to see that with Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange to Multiverse of Madness. By the way, the acronym for Multiverse of Madness is MOM.
Doctor Strange, mom.
It's like a Google search. Oh no, Doctor Strange mom is going to lead to either two things: the actual and the actual mother of Doctor Strange, or it'll just be Doctor Strange dressed up as a mother. Thanks, DeviantArt.
Imagine if suddenly Multiverse of Madness becomes a comedy only because, yeah, mom.
I mean, to be fair, that was like Scott Derrickson wanted to make it feel like a horror movie, and like I think we could still get that with Sam Raimi, but who knows at this point? Like, sure, it's more clear. Like the MCU is more clear than like whatever the fuck has become the DCEU. But the thing is that this movie is involving another director of horror, but we don't know if Sam Raimi is going to become a yes man for like Kevin Feige or not. Like nobody knows. I mean, it might even be worse than the way people complain about Spider-Man 3 because at least that movie felt more like apart from the things that he didn't want to do, at least felt more on par in terms of the quality with the other films. It's not like a dip in quality like Batman Forever or Superman 3 were.
Yeah.
But yeah, another tangent aside because we've been getting so many tangents, more like the Justice tangent. Loki itself is okay as a show. Like it's probably like it's like equal to One Division in terms of what it represents, and I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. To me, the strongest one is still the Falcon and Winter Soldier, just because it felt more like it had a strong, clear start to finish, and it didn't feel like it was just trying to hype up another thing that's going to happen in another few years or so. Sorry, Loki fans, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, and I don't feel that much different, so I don't know what else to say.
On the bright side, I do remember the "My Dead" or with followed by not unless you, not if you don't team up with us or whatever sort of like meme where you have all the different Lokis going up to one Loki. But I remember that more so from like the Optimus Prime memes that they use of like G1 Optimus saying "I'm my dead," and then these other versions of him with like using the figures. But then again, I don't really look at most of the MCU so because I kind of find a lot of modern day comic book like CBM fans kind of like insufferable. Like the big pages, the cloud seekers. I'm very picky with who I follow.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about Loki. Let's hope that Marvel Studios' What If actually manages to be kind of worthwhile because we kind of have ourselves like a so-so show that's more head scratching, a solid show, and a kind of a mixed bag. Um, I'd say we're like equal, like we're kind of going to be on equal footing if this one turns out to be kind of mixed, but we'll see. But finally, we'll be taking a look at Gunsmith Cats, which is an original video animation made in the 1990s and is an adaptation of a manga from around the same time period. Now, you seem more of a well versed person of anime than I am, but have you heard of Gunsmith Cats before?
To be honest, no. What is it about?
Well, let me tell you this. It's about two girls with guns that go around Chicago and try to like take on some like criminal masterminds vigilante style. And yes, you had it right. It takes place in Chicago, which is kind of cool because we don't really get that sort of mindset. Like I think the guy that was behind the series wanted to make it take place in the city, and I have to say it does a good job of being faithful to uh, the city itself because it definitely like you can recognize the loop, although it definitely takes more place in like the '90s or a different time period than uh, nowadays, which is nothing wrong with that.
No.
Yeah, it's
Is
pretty
it a show from, you said, wait, which year?
the '90s. It's
Nice.
it's not even like a full on TV show. It's more of like just like it's a three-part adaptation.
OVA.
Yeah, it is what it is like that. Yeah,
Yeah. And yeah, it probably has that cool aesthetic from those times.
it does. Like you can almost imagine like the vaporwave influence from it, or like the gifs or the loops of the background music where they remix different music. Like
Oh, yeah.
it definitely has a very vaporwave aesthetic to it. I mean, even the intro sort of has that feel because it's like very minimalistic, very cool, very slick, and of course, you have characters that wear shades. It would fit in pretty well with like those themes where you have characters driving in the car, looking cool, while the remix music plays. That's synthwave in a nutshell, and it fits wonderfully. Just expect them
Yeah.
to just expect them to be remixed with like slowed down, lower pitched versions of like Michael Jackson's music or any of the cool songs from the '70s or '80s or '90s even. Even if it's more in the '90s, it definitely feels like something from the '80s. But enough about the aesthetics because it is like got that sort of like cool, slick look to it that compared to modern stuff, like modern stuff looks so flat. And there's some stuff that looks dynamic, but it doesn't quite feel like it's like there's much effort put into it. And it's kind of weird with how animation works because sometimes like you look at animation from the like the 1930s or 50s with like Looney Tunes, and it looks so good. You compare stuff like
True.
Hanna Barbera, and it looks kind of cheap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you can look at cartoons from like the '70s or '80s to recent times, and stuff varies in quality. Like you have shows that are very fluid in animation and look very sharp and like slick. And you have some that are very like whimsical, very like rubbery, very cartoony. But modern days,
Yeah.
like you get like very different sorts of quality. Where if you ignore the writing quality, the animation might either be very cheap, very basic, or you might get stuff that's very professionally done. But hopefully, it doesn't look like it's so stiff and emotionless. Like it's all like a double-edged sword how things work nowadays because of the budgets as well as like the kind of directions that they want to go to. Not understanding that direction in art style shouldn't necessarily make you want to like do whatever you want to do. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I prefer the classic anime style that this one has more so than I do uh, the modern stuff. If you ask me,
Like you should totally check out Cowboy Bebop before it is ruined by Netflix.
Oh yeah, I even told that to Lunar Archivist on Twitter by saying, "Hey, I'm going to review. I'm not going to review the movie. I'm going to review this instead because like I always wanted to check it out, but never got around to it because I've been so busy with other things. But yeah, we'll see how it goes out here. That's for the story. Yeah, like Irene and her like little friend Minnie, who pretty much like they either work as shop owners or gun shop owners and bounty hunters as well. Now, Irene's pretty much the one that operates the gun shop and works as the bounty hunter. The other character, like Minnie, was like a housemate and a former prostitute at one point.
Okay.
They both have their own like different skills to one another. With like Irene being more of a combat shooter, marksman, and she drives very well. Like she definitely could do this on her own. Whereas Minnie is more of like the kind of character that's great with explosives and getting into reckless stuff, although not quite as like petty as someone like Misty Brown, who is a ex burglar and lockpicker that decides to use her own like capabilities or techniques for something that's kind of good. I mean, I wouldn't really consider them like full on heroes. I mean, their morality compass may be different from someone like Batman. Like he's a vigilante, but he's like a proper superhero. Whereas these gals are bounty hunters.
Yeah, you would say like anti heroes.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely would probably have like their own codes that are different from Batman. Like they're more so about having to fight dirty, whereas in terms of like being like they fit more for like something like the Suicide Squad, a Suicide Squad,
Um,
not the Suicide Squad, not the movie. Maybe not the haircut either, because I don't think they're quite capable for going up against something like Enchantress either. But uh, who knows? They definitely show their skills pretty well in the movie or OVA. Of course, as you find out, like as a result of her role, Irene now goes up against other people like gangsters known as the Grey, as well as going up against people like terrorists. And we also have a mafia that's like named Goldie Musoy, who pretty much uses a drug to try and manipulate people and make him feel like going against each other and being outright aggressive. Now, this is pretty much more of like a sort of well, not quite as vulgar, quite as violent. I mean, it definitely has a sort of like attitude to itself, but makes perfect sense. As for the OVA
mhm.
itself, you pretty much have three episodes: Neutral Zone, Swing High, and High Speed Edge. And I'm quite surprised I remember the names of it. Now, for episode one, it pretty much involves like a different character, not Misty, but it's Becky. Um, they have to investigate for the ATF, which is a gun running up religion led by Jonathan Washington. And I'm kind of surprised I remember that as well. That one was actually perfectly fine. It definitely gets you into the characters, and thankfully the duration for them is allows you to like not feel like you're missing out on too much. It doesn't feel rushed or anything. And if you really want to, you can watch them as a single movie. Uh, next episode is Swing High, which involves this contract killer guy who kills someone named Washington or Jonathan Washington, I think. And well, the team goes up against like some sort of like shipment of guns within a different state, like Michigan. Um, the Russian contact killer goes up against him, and it makes for a pretty lengthy car chase, and it's a pretty good car chase overall in terms of animation. I mean, like I think we can all agree that car chases may be more exciting in real life because like just the way they do the stunts very well.
Hmm. Yeah, man, I don't know how they managed to like planify the movements of the characters back then. Because
Yeah,
think about it. They didn't even have that much of visual representation of it, aside from actual uh, people who knows how to do martial arts, for example.
yeah. Although I think this, since this was made around the '90s, they had a lot of resources to look into. But car chases in the '80s are definitely different from like the ones we get for like Fast and the Furious and Transformers, where it's more intense. Like you might get
Yeah,
vehicle chases for something like Terminator, which feel very like tense, but nowhere near as like. But it's like a different kind of tensity from say the car chase involving Bumblebee and Barricade in the first Transformers movie, or anything that goes crazily in Fast and Furious, as I mentioned.
yeah,
As for the final episode of the OVA, I think this one is like the one where like we go back to Illinois or Chicago. It's kind of like basically a cat and mouse game, and it turns out that like the state senator Edward Haynes is like exposed for his crimes and his connections with the Russian contract killer. And it's kind of funny how it turns out because like people tend to talk about how uh politicians tend to be corrupt at times, but this is from a time period where like at least they didn't make it so annoying or like try to crisscross over reality. Like this is me nowadays, people try and say like, oh, this is like exposing like Toronto dump and his like a condom with um Vladimir Putin or Bo Jiden or Barack Obama or whatever,
yeah.
or whatever people want to like talk crap about these days with modern day politicians. Like, grow up, people. People in the 1990s were much less irritating, I'm sure, but it was still good. I mean, I still enjoyed my watch of Gunsmith Cats. But what's even more interesting is just like the way everything worked out, because like I like the fact that the guy that made the series loved cars, and I can't blame him either. Like cars are cool. I personally have like I don't have the confidence to drive one because I don't want to like risk damaging anything. But if I was in an open environment, I would definitely love to go crazy with driving a car. And like it's very interesting that he chose a Shelby Cobra GT 500 because of like the sound effects, because it definitely fits in with the kind of vehicle that they chose. And I also like the fact that the production staff for the anime had to learn about like guns and researching them before making the series, so it felt very realistic. And apparently, the music was made by Weather Report drummer Peter Erskine. Yeah, say you know how the music for Vaporwave tends to sound very nostalgic. I think we found out why, because the guy that does the Weather Channel music does this thing.
You
Like I don't,
say so?
yeah, like I don't know if you listen to the Weather Channel music, but it's very nostalgic. It kind of takes you back to a simpler time period where, you probably were playing with your action figures with your dad, and just like while he listens to the weather. Yeah, I don't know how it works in your like in your country. Maybe it's got even better music than in the U.S. Who knows? I want to listen to it.
Usually, the tune kind of stays the same around the world because the US set the footprint, let's say.
Either way, like definitely shows you a fact that like even if you weren't paying attention to the weather music, like the Weather Channel, at least the music was nice to listen to in the background.
Yeah.
Until that is, you get warnings about a thunderstorm or tornado,
Or an earthquake if you're from Japan.
or in any other country that's nearby, like the ocean. Like I think Florida has earthquakes.
Yeah.
San Francisco, maybe. Like obviously, like where I live in Illinois, there are no earthquakes because we're like far away from the coast. We're like far away from the ocean. Like we instead live nearby a lake. What we experience instead is like heavy doses of rain, wind, or snow. So you probably
Uh, kind of fine and kind of not.
like expect us to like deal with like snowstorms, but we can manage it. I mean, we've been doing like I've been able to shovel snow for the past 10 years, ever since I knew how to shovel snow on my own, so I can manage it.
Dude, I do not miss shoveling snow. That was painful for my back.
I mean, like it depends. Like I can feel your pain too. Like I kind of got annoyed by it at first, but nowadays I got more capable of it, and I can do it no problem. I even got to help out
Yeah,
some
you
neighbors, and they paid me in return, which is always appreciative.
oh, well, there's always like a technique, because I probably did something wrong
Yeah, you
when
gotta
I like
it like
got the shovel
you,
into the snow and stuff.
you
Probably the movement wasn't healthy enough.
yeah, just make sure you when you shovel the snow, use an angle for it. But yeah,
Yeah.
back we're once again we're going off topic. Like I lost track of how many times we got off topic. But
Sorry.
yeah, the staff apparently went to Chicago to look at locations. They visited a gun shop, a police academy. They were trying to research like any how guns work, which is not possible in Japan because Japan has very strict gun laws compared to the U.S. And I'm not going to go into like how this works because it's going to be very controversial and it's going to give off the wrong vibe to the people that aren't paying attention. So move on from that. And
Fire, fire.
fire, 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 fire. I remember that one, like the one Fred guy that was like witnessing Ratchet crash land in the first TF movie. But anyways, yeah, that was like pretty like cool stuff to learn about because usually like it's kind of surprising to look at how Japan likes to learn about some stuff that happens in the U.S. because like I don't know why. Sometimes when I look at a country, like when the U.S. tries to like appeal to like a specific demographic, they kind of do it in a very annoying fashion. Like some things ends up being pretty cool, but it kind of reminds me when they try to appeal to nerd culture and they make themselves look so obnoxious.
Oh,
It's like when I look at the Netflix geek stuff, it looks like it's so cringy. It's like them saying, "How do you do, fellow fans?"
yee, gang, gang, gang. Sheesh. Dab.
It's not even that. That's the problem. Like that's
69, 69.
like that's not even my big problem with them. Like like instead that's something I expect like fucking Chips Ahoy to do with those like shit advertisement that they make. Oh, when the chip when like the aim is bad, but the chips are still rad. Like, shut up, that garbage. We we had better commercials back then with like the stop motion animation stuff. What happened with making commercials that were kind of stupid but kind of charming at the same time?
Yeah. Um, I think that back then they just valued more the creativity behind the advertisements. For example, Zack Snyder fucking started off his director work in advertisement.
Yep. Uh, but then again, like the difference is that he's not trying to appeal to the Gen Z
No.
demographic. He's just
Yeah,
trying to do
no.
his own job. Like I doubt Zach would ever want to do like a stupid ass Chips Ahoy commercial. He'd probably want to instead make an homage to the ones from the 2000s because those were kind of fun. But like back to why do we keep on getting off topic? Ah!
I
Okay,
don't
okay,
know,
okay,
man.
okay, okay.
We probably have like a lot of attention issues.
Maybe we do. Oh my god. Okay, okay, okay. All right. We're almost done.
Let's refocus. Refocus.
All right. Face forward, eyes forward, and let's embrace the fact that Netflix Geek still sucks at trying to appeal to fan bases. I mean, I'm not going to get into like my thoughts on how of the Netflix stuff for Masters of the Universe turned out because I'm not into it, although I heard it was pretty poor. And you already know my thoughts on that stupid War for Cybertron Netflix trilogy. But
I think you've been quite insistent with it.
yeah, so like unlike Netflix Geeked, which feels super annoying and may not be the perfect example or comparison, but like unlike that, Japan, like the guys that were involved with the Gunsmith Cats OVA, knew how to make the depiction of the U.S. in Chicago feel natural. Like it didn't feel cringy. It didn't feel like it's annoying. It doesn't feel like a joke. It feels like this was made as if it would actually be in a sort of situation like that. It felt organic to it. And although it may not get as much attention as say people trying to um, do stupid stuff for like trying to put in their favorites like modern day US president on the body of Superman and treat it like, oh my god, guys, look at me, I'm so cool, right? It's like, no, you're not. Gunsmith Cats is the Chad compared to the version modern day attempt at trying to do um, media like that. Like the cast itself was great, the story itself was great, animation was very good, and you compare this to something like I don't know what would be a good comparison for it. Whatever adult entertainment's out there that's not Simpsons nor Family Guy nor American Dad nor even Bob's Burgers, like this would make a much more entertaining like piece of adult media if it was put like, and I'd say it's on par with like another Fox show, X Cop, because X Cop kind of like knows how to be funny and or like be like a proper parody without it being like too annoying or in your face like a lot of adult shows are that try to be like super bland.
Yeah,
uh, the only thing that kind of sucks is that apart from the manga, there's not much else to like look into for Gunsmith Cats, which sucks because I want to learn more about the series. There's so much potential for more ideas for the story, and it kind of sucks
sort of.
that you have like 3 episodes for the OVA because I liked what I saw, both in terms of the characters and animation. Now, I'm not going to go on Twitter and be like hashtag restore the Gunsmith Cats verse. Like that's impossible. It's very
Yeah, it
niche.
won't happen.
Like it's like we're less likely to get that than not than an OVA for Sailor V, who, if you don't remember, is Venus
Yeah,
from yeah. Like that's that, but like I think the thing that I like, appreciate about it is that even though we have like very little for Gunsmith Cats to delve into, like what I have seen is like very good. I mean, my experience of looking at some niche OVA stuff has been kind of like a mix, like very strange. I mean, I remember this one guy that was like a bigger anime fan than I am from years ago was like, "Hey, you gotta check this out," but it's like it's like fucking hentai, man. They just focus on the hentai, and the animation was rubbish.
they like fund all the scenes where there are big boobies bouncing, and then everything else related to action, it's probably mediocre.
Yeah. Now Gunsmith Cats does have like it's like the females, like the girls in Gunsmith Cats, definitely do look kind of like sexualized, so we put it. But at least they're able to balance it up and making the characters important as well. Like you remember the
And
characters as much as you do their
Japan.
appearances.
It's Japan we're talking about. They will
Yeah,
always be sexualized one way or another.
yeah, which is true. I mean, even in the back then, they did it for like panty shots and like curvy bodies, but at least it wasn't just the only thing that mattered. I mean, and at the very least, it's not getting like ridiculously ripped a new one like that one, like one gray haired girl that was short and had the big chest and had like gray hair and had like a fang tooth to her. I forgot her name, but I remember seeing the redraw challenge and I made the best contribution ever just by making a circle with little stubs and a smiley face on it. And it's not Kirby either because I gave it an extra head, look like a snowman. But
Hmm.
Gunsmith Cats, I like it.
Certified fresh.
Yeah, certified fresh from um, Juicy Apples.
Well, let's say a special hi and salute to our friend Kuis Lenteno.
Yep. If you guys heard about him, Siwas Lanteno is kind of a guy that is sort of active, not really active on Twitter, but he is kind of a funny guy. he kind of reminds me in terms of he kind of reminds me of the sort of guy, like, I don't know how to describe his personality, but he kind of reminds me of Charlie Day for some reason. And it's not because of the Mario movie voice cast announcement. I just remember watching some voice clips or like videos involving Mr. Day, and that's what Siwas reminds me of. Siwas, I don't know if you're watching this video. You're probably like busy still looking for the Snyder Cut at a store, even though a friend of ours gave you the link. This is a shout out for you, buddy. We'll see you next time, guys. Take care, everybody. Nikki Pimbear instead of basically Pimbear is is like an acronym of or anagram, an acronym, anagram, whatever word starts with A. But
Yeah,
it's
acronym, I guess.
yeah, acronym, like anagram, like you know how like if you were to name something like I'm losing track. Help me, help me, help me. Okay. Like I said, I listened to that shit back then when I was like starting my new like years at college. Because like unlike this is gonna be kind of a random topic, but whereas I felt very happy-go-lucky and very positive with Robert Arupe, not Robert Morris. Like Robert Morris felt a little more cold, left me cold with a cold shoulder. Like it wasn't that it felt more like I hate to make this sound like he's totally like me, he's literally like me. But kind of feel like
That's totally me, man.
But it kind of reminds you like being like Arthur Fleck from Joker, where it felt like it wasn't as vibrant, it didn't pop that well, and you kind of felt like it kind of made me feel kind of miserable walking around because A, I had to deal with like working with stuff. B, it didn't feel quite as exciting. C, I felt more limited in what I could do in terms of time. And D, like even though it was a bigger building, it felt kind of like kind of made me feel like a fish in a small pond, like in a big ocean, instead of me being like a big fish in a more approachable size of water. That's just how I feel about it, because unfortunately, like as a result of that, I had to focus on stuff like Vaporwave to try and give me a new feel, and that was what I listened to back then. And we're getting off track, so what the fuck is going on with this podcast episode? But basically, it was a sign of the fact that we were all just happy to. Who's we? I'm not Venom. I'm not Teddy Brock. What the fuck is this episode?
We were very happy.
We were very happy. Eddie Brock to this person that is. I can't do the voice. Oh my god.
Today's definitely not your day to do the dubbing and, well, the imitations.
Like, thing is that. But that's about it for today's episode. What an experience it was just to get distracted so many times. Yeah, this is what happens when we're off schedule, but like it's not your fault. In fact,
Dude, I want to be honest with you. I slept 3 hours.
as for me, I slept like 2 hours and 59 minutes one time because I was so busy trying to get myself finish up some work for Text Broker, because fucking Text Broker sucks nowadays.
Only good thing that happened today is that I got to watch a bit of the match between Paris Saint-Germain and Manchester City.
That's cool.
It was cool because Messi scored, and I was kind of happy about that.
Oh, we're still on?
I'm a proud Argentinian.
Are we still on? Oh my god, we're still on! Okay, I think that's enough for us today.
You can leave that part. I don't care.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right.
Wait, don't forget to subscribe. If you do, I'll give you a headbutt. That's ogre for thank you.